7 a.m. on a summer morning in June 2012. The birds are chirping, the coffee's brewing, and news junkies all across the nation are flocking to their TVs, turning on CNN, seeing whether or not the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, was ruled as unconstitutional. All of a sudden the words appear on the screen. Obamacare, unconstitutional. And half the country is just filled with joy, and the other half just, punches holes in the mouth. About 15 minutes later, CNN realized their mistake after they turned the next page and found out that Obamacare was found constitutional. It was just they couldn't label it as a fine, they had to label it as a tax. And Fox News did this too, not as long, not for 15 minutes, for about 5-7 minutes, but 15 minutes for a quarter of an hour. An unnamed CNN veteran told BuzzFeed that the incident was, quote, fucking humiliating. Today my goal is to persuade you to stop watching the 24-hour news networks and read alternative news sources. And even if you don't watch the 24-hour news networks, I'm sure you know somebody, a friend or a family member, that does. And I have listed 5 reasons, I mean there are many more reasons, but there are 5 reasons why I think you should stop. One is that there's misinformation and bias. Because they don't have an hour, they no longer have just half an hour to report all the news. So it's no longer objective, it's subjective. You have to evaluate the news to kill time for 24 hours a day. This leads to bias, and there's no big secret. One of the 24-hour news networks is extremely conservative, and the other is extremely liberal. So, how many of you had to cite your sources for this class?
Don't ask how many did, just how many were supposed to.
So, CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC almost never cite their sources. It is extremely rare, and Jeff Sorensen of the Huffington Post said that it's, quote, rare to see big news cite sources. Both sides argue their views to the point that neither side listens to the other side, end quote. Since they don't have to cite their sources, they can pretty much say whatever they want, and they could, maybe it's true, but maybe it's not. 3, it's entertainment. It's not meant, it's like not important, and it's just meant to entertain you for 24 hours a day. For example, in October 2013, U.S. drone strikes in Yemen and Pakistan were declared unlawful by Amnesty International due to the amount of unarmed civilians killed. And that was reported by BBC. Now, I'd say it's pretty important when a Human Rights Watch says that the U.S. is not respecting human rights. I don't know. But, they spend hours a day analyzing what Donald Sterling or the Malaysian air flight, which, it was a tragedy, obviously, for family members and the people on board, but, I mean, does anyone know anyone that was on the Malaysian air flight? Okay, good. The 4th reason...
I could have gone so wrong.
The 4th is that there's an unhealthy competition between the 3 major news networks. Like I said earlier, the whole Obamacare ruling that mistake happened because they were competing to see who gets first. So that's why they read the first paragraph of the Supreme Court decision and then reported. And it's like reading the first chapter of a book and then writing an essay on the entire book. It's silly. And, 5, there is a lack of opinion. There is a small range of opinions. For example, a Gallup poll in March 2013 found that 65% of Americans support U.S. drone strikes on foreign suspected terrorists living overseas. Only 25% of Americans support drone strikes on foreign suspected terrorists living in the United States. And a mere 13% of Americans support U.S. domestic terrorists, or using drone strikes on U.S. domestic terrorists living in the United States. What this suggests is, because they never have anyone or a survivor of a drone strike talk on CNN, you really don't see what they can do. And because, it happens thousands of miles away, we don't have to deal with it. But, once your neighbor gets hit by a drone, it becomes a problem. And so here are some alternatives. One is Al Jazeera News Network. They're really popular for presenting dissenting news, and that's really why they're always in prison. And they're stationed in Qatar, and they have a free phone app and a page on Facebook that you can like to, so the articles show up in your Facebook newsfeed. And but a second solution is to just give up news entirely. And in this article on the bottom, you can write it down if you're a nerd. It's from The Guardian. Says it's written by a guy who believes you should just completely, fully give up news in its entirety. And he stated, out of the approximately 10,000 articles that you have read, name one that allowed you to make a better decision in your life. He also believes that news inhibits thinking because thinking requires uninterrupted time, and news is specifically designed to interrupt your time. And so now that I have given you 2 solutions, I believe the best method, or the best alternative, is to just give up news entirely. And I'm still working on it, but yeah, it's almost all news. It's always really negative. You never hear about puppies and ice cream. It's always about, when Iran's going to get a nuclear bomb, or when North Korea is going to get a nuclear bomb, or when China's going to nuke it. I don't know. And yeah, it's just, just look at how sad most news junkies are. I don't know one that lives an extremely happy life, honestly. And all important news, like local news, who wins city council, or like the board of supervisors in Butte County, that's all spread by word of mouth. And that's, by that I mean also Facebook. But so it's give up news entirely. I sometimes go on news fast, and I'm happier when I do it. And thanks, guys. Question? Yes.
Would you say the local news who just reported the bus accident that happened, and news that reports stuff like that, do you think those are crap, or?
I think those, they're good for local politics, but they do they are
They're
also
depressing.
negative.
They're depressing.
They only like report on the drive-bys or gang shootings or stabbings or someone gets shot at LaSalle's, something
But
like
you're
that.
just saying if you wanna know stuff like that,
I
that's
think
better
it's,
to go
yeah,
on.
I think it's really good for local politics, and I read the Synthesis, which is a local newspaper, and it's really nice. They report on some really good stuff. Any other questions?
Actually, I think I told you about this when we talked, but I read that people who watch the news actually, a lot actually know less than people who just kind of hear the news on in the other room or whatever. Like, I mean, my dad watches news like 24/7. He's a huge like conservative. Everything he says is just like wrong. It's just like it's just, I don't know, it corrupts your, you know,
Yeah.
you can't think open-mindedly so much, and
But why did you choose this?
Because my grandma watches the news all day, and she doesn't know, she knows very little on so many topics, and I just thought it was really sad. And so I did this.
You've got a couple more.
Are you gonna show your grandma this?
I tried to get her to stop, but it just doesn't work.
Towards the beginning, you mentioned independent media sources. Could you recommend any?
I'm not really sure. I mean, honestly, I really only read BBC and Al Jazeera. But, and then for local news, I read Synthesis, and that's really all I get my news from.
I was gonna say, you might want to check out the Young Turks online.
What?
The Young Turks online. It's a YouTube show, but they're really solid. I mean, that's one of the few. Them, Democracy Now, a couple others are some of the few news sources I go to, but a lot of it's because of the misinformation on corporate news. You know what I mean?
Young Turks is super informational. I use like social media. I mean, like, because there's so many people from all over, like, using social media all over the world. Like, I'll use like Tumblr or whatever. Like when the Boston Marathon happened, you could like type in Boston Marathon or whatever. People in Boston taking pictures out their windows of like what's going on.
Yeah, it was on,
You know, or
it was
like
on Twitter and and Tumblr before it was on the news.
You can
Yeah,
go on
lots of
Facebook.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It's
not
raining outside, yes, thank you.